Welcome to another episode of View from the Bleachers. I'm your host, Tim Jones. Hear that sound? Isn't that soothing? Actually, as relaxing as this sound is, there are times when it can be the sound of disaster and impending death. Which brings me to my topic for this week. What does it look like to become a hero? Could you be a hero? Could I? I believe that under the right circumstances, any one of us might be a hero. Now, am I saying that I'm a hero? No, I'm not saying that. Okay, well, maybe just this one time. It's hard for me even to talk about it, but I'd like to tell you about a true story of a time when, believe it or not, I actually saved 10 innocent lives from certain death. Was I a hero? I don't know. More on the other side. Welcome back. This is the true story of the time when I saved 10 innocent lives. Honestly, I rarely talk about what happened. To this day, even my kids have no idea about my Herculean actions. I certainly don't consider myself a hero any more than Gandhi or Martin Luther King or that guy who leapt onto the New York City subway track and rescued that man from an oncoming train. Like him, I was just in the right place at the right time. I did what I had to do. If you were as incredibly selfless as I am, you might have done the very same thing. Now, it's hard for me to discuss the events of that traumatic day some 20 years ago. I can still see their struggling, flailing bodies overcome by the icy cold waters, unable to escape to safety. Death was knocking, no, pounding at their door. Okay, to be honest, in some ways, I blame myself for this near tragedy. They never would have gotten themselves in their perilous predicament had it not been for my own carelessness. Even worse, there was no way to blame my wife for this disaster as, well, she was out of town at the time. Let me take you back to the beginning. It all started when our then 7-year-old daughter, Emily, brought home a plastic bag filled with 10 teensy guppies. Her teacher had entrusted her with a school of fish on the condition that she take good care of them. Well, being a first grader, my daughter had not yet acquired the requisite level of maturity necessary to handle this enormous responsibility. In the weeks that followed, she would grossly overfeed them and then neglect to feed them for days on end. She never bothered to clean their tank. So before long, their habitat became discolored and grimy from, well, poop. Not a pleasant sight. Not ready to broach the topic of where guppies go after they die, let alone whether there was a Santa Claus, with my impressionable young daughter, I came to the rescue, as all competent helicopter parents do, and I took over the care of these tiny, fragile, inch-long sea creatures. After implementing a strict feeding regimen, I donned a hazmat suit and faced the onerous task of scouring their currently disgusting tank. Man, was their tank filthy. I mean, it was gross. Nevertheless, using a net, I scooped these little critters one by one out of the murky waters and deposited them into a salad bowl that we would plan to use later that evening for dinner. But currently, it was filled with clean H2O. I scrubbed their glass dwelling thoroughly and refilled it with fresh tap water. I then dumped them back into their sparkling clean home. And they swam with fresh abandon in their pristine environment. But did any of them give me so much as a nod of appreciation? Nope, not so much as a flick of a fin. In case you're contemplating adding guppies to your family, you should know that guppies are incredibly self-absorbed and they will never offer even the slightest acknowledgement of gratitude for anything you do for them. So, in a way, they're a lot like your own kids. Yeah. So anyway, I started to clean up the bathroom, but then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed some of the guppies were no longer darting back and forth the way they usually did in relentless search of an escape from their glass prison. And before long, very few of them were moving at all. And some were starting to flip over on their backs. Like this guy here. Something fishy was happening. In minutes, all 10 of them were totally motionless. Uh-oh, Somehow, I really don't know how, I had killed them all. I was a guppy murderer. What was I going to tell my little girl, Emily? She had come home so excited with all her guppy babies. How was I going to explain that I had murdered all of her guppy babies? I tried to conjure up some elaborate fish story about the 10 that got away. I had not fully formulated my lie, but I concluded our cat Boodles would figure prominently into my fabrication. Well, since he lacked the ability to formulate words or gestures in his defense, he was the obvious patsy. Sorry, buddy. Somebody's got to take the fall. It sure as hell isn't going to be me. The first step to my plan was to hide the evidence by extracting the corpses from their watery graves and feeding them to Boodles, thus both appeasing and framing our cat in one move. I put my hand into the tank. Whoa! The water was icy cold. It was freezing. And then a thought occurred to me. Might I have frozen the poor devils to death? What kind of a monster was I? Well, as I stood over the tank, pondering how easy it would be to hide my crime, my mind leapt to cryonics, body freezing for future revival. Now hear me. I wonder, maybe all was not lost, I thought to myself. If they could be frozen, perhaps they could be unfrozen? I quickly poured out half the cold water and replaced it with hot water, making the overall mixture approximately room temperature. And then I held my breath. 2 agonizing minutes later, I spied a flicker, and then another one. And one by one, the once dead guppies were wiggling back to life. They're alive! They're alive! It's a miracle. The murderer had become the savior. Before long, all 10 were happily zigging and zagging all around the tank, and of course, without a word of thanks to me for saving their lives. Now, I sometimes reflect back on that day and I cringe about the near calamity I had caused. I mean, I had practically killed these 10 innocent young lives. Blood was almost on my hands, but in the end, I was able to save them all from an icy cold death. So, in a way, I actually was the hero. Now, before you start posting congratulatory comments about how great I am for saving all those lives, just know that my heroism doesn't make me a better person than you. Okay, maybe just a little. Barely worth pointing out, if you ask me. Oh, in case you were curious about that photo I posted at the outset of this video, yeah, this one here. Oh, that's just a photo of 10 contestants from season 3 of the TV show Survivor. I really liked that photo for some reason. Sorry if that was confusing in any way. In any event, if you like this video, please click on the subscribe button below and share this video with your friends or anyone you'd like to annoy. And if you're bored and have nothing better to do, check out more of my humor at viewfromthebleachers.net. And remember, maybe someday you can be a hero just like me.